coming up tonight on the news at 6.
Every time we go paddling, we're not picking up garbage usually. We're enjoying the river.
Meet the kayakers who took action to clean up part of the Missouri River. Plus, the latest on Montana's COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan.
From Montana's news leader, this is MTN News at 6.
Good evening. Welcome to the news at 6. I'm Marian Davidson. Thanks for joining us. Well, our top story tonight at 6, and one we've been following closely for weeks. Last week, the Montana Department of Transportation and a team made up of state agencies and contractors from the Toston Structures Project worked together to pick up trash along an 8-mile stretch of the Missouri River. But days earlier, a group of 3 avid kayakers went out and picked up trash and debris. MTN's Jessica Nelson spoke to one of the paddlers and has their story.
Trash and debris in the Missouri River surrounding this bridge construction project has led to several different cleanup efforts. The most notable, a group of 3 avid kayakers who love Montana and its clean waterways.
Drinking water bottles. We found 139. The next was Aquafina. There was 51 of those. And then like Bang Star Blast. There were cans, 8 of those, 7 Gatorades, 3 Nestle water.
Norm Miller is an avid kayaker who refers to himself as a river rat. He says you'd expect to see trash and debris on the Missouri River near larger cities like Kansas City or Sioux City.
Up here, it's more obvious when something like that happens, which I think is why it was a little disturbing. And to see it, it's like, wow, this hasn't happened in the 20 years that I've seen it.
After our original story aired regarding fisherman Patrick Hogan wanting to report trash in the river near the Toston Bridge, Norm gathered 2 of his best paddler friends and headed out onto the water.
I grabbed all those bags, called Mark and Jim, and we put in above Toston Dam at the town of Toston, and then paddle down to Townsend, which is where Patrick said in the article, I think he said like 23 miles of garbage he found.
But Norm and his friends didn't even paddle 1 mile before their boats were full of trash.
We filled all of our bags we bought within a quarter mile or a half a mile of the entire river. It's like, oh my God, we were out of bags.
They were in disbelief. Norm has paddled the Missouri River for 20 years and says in an entire summer of paddling, he may collect 1 grocery bag full of trash.
Every time we go paddling, we're not picking up garbage usually. We're enjoying the river, and all of a sudden we're spending the whole time. It's just like, wow, this is just unbelievable.
Norm says he would hate to see the situation progress to where river cleanups have to be organized several times a year.
Let's put a halt on it now before it ends up being like Kansas City or Sioux City.
Norm and his friends plan on heading back out on the water once the ice melts in order to pick up any of the remaining debris. Reporting near Townsend, I'm Jessica Nelson, MTN News.
About 9 days after Norm and his 2 friends cleaned up the river, the Montana Department of Transportation contacted MTN News to tell us a team of state agencies and contractors from the Toston Structures Project worked together to pick up trash on an 8-mile stretch of the Missouri River. All right, and here's Andy Curtis holding it down in the Weather Center for Curtis Grevenitz.
Should be seeing a little bit more ice forming on waterways across the state, with temperatures dipping well below freezing for the rest of the week. But of course, double check before you go out to do any ice fishing or step out on the ice whatsoever, because it can be deceiving, very much. So can this snow be deceiving here on the map? Looks like we're getting a good amount of snow, but it's actually staying up in the higher elevations. So Rogers Pass, I know this is a night shot, so you can't really appreciate what's going on the roadways there, but could be a little bit of snow up there right now, so be careful. And up on Mac Pass, and the roads up there don't look really clear, so give yourself plenty of time if you're heading up that direction tonight or tomorrow morning. A little bit of mountain snow, combine that with a little bit of wind over the next couple of days. Temperatures won't be that awful, but it'll be colder and with a good amount of wind blowing through. But we do have a warm weekend ahead of us. I'll tell you more about that in the full forecast.
The governor's office announced the state's COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan has been updated to incorporate new federal recommendations. The plan outlines an updated timeline for vaccine distribution. Phase 2, in which all Montanans will be eligible to get the vaccine, is estimated to take place late spring to early summer 2021. Nearly 17,000 Montana frontline workers have gotten the vaccine in the first and current stage, Phase 1A. The updated plan expands that phase to include additional healthcare workers with direct patient contact, like, for example, dentists and physical therapists.
That's an exciting component where we can actually see our work come together. So I think all the work now is beginning to pay off as we move through these phases. The one thing that we've learned is to be very flexible in what we do. We can plan and then our plans change, and that's just the nature of the process for us.
The next phase is expected to begin in mid-January. Now, we have a link to that full plan on our website, ktvh.com. And now taking a look at Montana's COVID-19 situation, COVID-19 cases and deaths are back on the rise in the state. Local and state numbers show 10 more deaths reported since last night, bringing the statewide death total to 989, while active cases sit at just around 5,300. Active hospitalizations rose slightly from yesterday to 223. Now keep in mind, MTN uses a combination of state and locally confirmed data, and because of that, our numbers may differ from what you see on the state dashboard. Well, the Helena Boy Scouts are starting a new fundraiser, collecting and recycling Christmas trees. MTN's Alexia Guayo has the story.
On January 2nd and 9th, Troop 214 Boy Scouts will collect your Christmas tree with a suggested donation of $10. After January 9th, the city of Helena will step in to collect any remaining trees. The Boy Scouts are conducting this fundraiser to recoup their items stolen from their storage shed in November.
Nothing has turned up, which is really unfortunate. At this point, the chance of it turning up is probably pretty slim.
The troop says they are trying to recoup about $6,000 worth of items they use for trips such as snowshoes, tents, and even a trailer. The Scoutmaster says the boys are ready to work hard and remain positive about recouping their losses.
We are keeping positive about it. It's a real disappointing thing, especially the boys worked for quite a few years to accumulate this equipment. The community has been real supportive, and we're hoping that this is one small way that each person maybe can help us get back on our feet as far as the equipment goes.
Collected trees will be taken to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks at Canyon Ferry Lake. They will use the trees to improve fish habitat. In Helena, I'm Alexi Guayo, MTN News.
The first tree pickup begins this Saturday, January 2nd, and if you want your tree picked up, head over to our website. We have a link to help you get signed up. And still ahead on the news at 6, how the pandemic is affecting one Helena Family YMCA event and why it's so important.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the news at 6. The Helena Family YMCA's Ed Kellner Mile Swim starts up tomorrow morning. MTN's Sam Hoyle takes a look at why the event is important.
Every year, the Helena Family YMCA hosts the Ed Kellner Mile Swim, an event where competitors try and swim a mile as fast as they can. And the reason the Helena Family YMCA chose to dedicate this event to Kellner is his influence on the aquatics department right here.
He was one of our longest members who inspired many other swimmers to be a swimmer, essentially. So he was very active in the aquatics community here at the Helena Family YMCA.
The annual event normally garners around 30 swimmers who look to attempt to swim all 5,280 feet. But this year, due to COVID-19, the number has been cut down significantly, as the Helena Family YMCA can only have members participate.
Usually we will have about 20 to 30 participants at the event. And this year we only have about 14 to 15 participants. And I think a lot has to do with COVID. And we are only allowing members to participate because it's one of the regulations and guidelines. So we are definitely seeing an impact, but individuals can still help out, even if they don't want to swim a whole mile, which I know can be very intimidating.
The mile swim kicks off on New Year's Eve. Reporting in Helena, Sam Hoyle, MTN Sports.
All right, now look at what you really want to know, the weather and what New Year's Eve and New Year's Day might look like. Here's Andy.
Hopefully I've got some good news for you. It might be on the warm side, and also will probably be on the windy side as we welcome in 2021. I'll tell you about that coming up next. Welcome back, everyone. Andy Curtis filling in once again for Curtis Grevenance tonight. Starting things off in the Electric City, 38 degrees out there, but it feels a lot cooler than that. Feels like we're in the 20s around Great Falls tonight, and a big chunk of that reason is that wind. You can see the wind speed's 22 miles per hour, the consistent gusts, so it's a windy day, and then those high end of things, we're getting up to around 36 miles per hour. And that won't go anywhere for the next day at least. It's going to be a windy end to 2020 around Great Falls. Down in Helena, 30 degrees, feels like 30 degrees, very calm. It'll also be a calm end, at least wind-wise, to 2020 around the Helena area. Now, wind varies across the state, calm in some spots like Havre and Kalispell, but very windy and blustery up in Cut Bank. Livingston, that looks more like normal. 46 mile per hour winds in Livingston, and then Bozeman, 3 mile per hour winds. So your guess is as good as mine, but that wind will be sticking around in areas around Cut Bank and Great Falls, and of course Livingston as we head into tomorrow. And here's a good illustration of that. Not the worst we've seen. Thursday tomorrow morning, 3:30 a.m. Still pretty widespread and windy, like what we're seeing out there tonight. Calms down as we get into Thursday afternoon, New Year's Eve afternoon, New Year's Eve evening, and then 2020 as we ring in the new year. Wind will die down for a good chunk, so Great Falls looking pretty good. Though if you're celebrating along the Rocky Mountain front or Cut Bank, you still better batten down those hatches because the wind will be licking up and kicking up all through the nights until we get into Friday. And Friday morning, it's still going pretty strong up there along the Rocky Mountain front, but calming along most of north central Montana. So that's what we're expecting, the wind to really ebb and flow, come and go over the next couple of days in all the usual spots. But Helena, not looking too bad. Great Falls, windy, but calming down a little bit, hopefully, as we get into the weekend. Temperatures right now, we're in the 20s and 30s across the state. Of course, it feels a lot cooler than that. If you are outside watching me through a window right now, you know what I'm talking about. 27 degrees in Missoula and 28 in Kalispell. It feels a little cooler over there because that's where we're seeing some of that snow come in from the western border right now. Now, this snow looks widespread, but it's really more of an issue, and there's more of a presence up in the higher elevations. So we're not seeing anything around Helena or Great Falls, and we're not going to see anything in those areas for the rest of the night. But up high in the usual spots up in the mountains, that snow is falling, but it's not falling too hard. It's probably 1 to 2 inches at most in some areas. So if you're going over any of the mountain passes, you want to give yourself plenty of extra time just in case some of that snow is taking up residence on the roadways. Combine that with some wind in the areas, and it could be a nasty driving situation, but just common sense, give yourself plenty of time and be safe. 7-day forecast for Great Falls, 44 for New Year's Eve is the expected high, and that wind's still sticking around. Plenty of sunshine on New Year's Day, though, and temperatures 45 degrees. So we're in the mid-40s around Great Falls all through the weekend and to start the new year, and we might even get to 50 degrees on Sunday, but usually when we are warm at this time of the year, it comes with plenty of wind, so 47 mile per hour gusts can be expected. Both Saturday and Sunday look pretty windy at times as well. Down in Helena, a little bit cooler, but a little less windy, and a pretty nice looking weekend, pushing 40 degrees on both Saturday and Sunday.
All right, thanks for that, Andy. Coming up, part 2 of our series about flying a spy plane on the edge of space.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the news at 6. The U-2 spy plane has been at the heart of U.S. intelligence efforts dating back to the 1950s. Since its first test flight in 1955, the U-2 has been involved in every major conflict, natural disaster, and man-made disaster around the world. Tonight, MTN's Jay Cohn talks with Livingston resident Ed Walby, a former U-2 pilot and squadron commander, to learn more about what it's like to fly at the edge of space while keeping a close eye on Mother Earth.
And the rest is just kind of memorabilia.
Retired Air Force Colonel Ed Walby's basement is like a museum for America's notorious U-2 spy plane. Letters from Presidents Reagan, Ford, and Bush congratulating Walby on his distinguished career adorn the walls. Photographs and memorabilia document Walby's time with the U-2 program.
You literally feel like you're on top of the world. You can see the curvature of the Earth. You can actually look up and it's real dark above you. You can see stars during the day.
Walby's the first to tell you that every flight in the U-2 is special. But included in his 1,000 hours in the cockpit, 2 of his missions stand out from the rest. In March of 1989, Walby was at the controls when the U-2 flew alongside the space shuttle during its launch. NASA wanted a closer look at what was damaging the shuttle's tiles.
I flew the first mission and shuttle goes zipping by. We're inside of 5 miles. And what we do is point the camera and just shoot as the shuttle goes to see if we could catch any debris.
But due to the shuttle's speed and flight path, Walby had to fly without autopilot. It's what happened next that Walby remembers the most.
As soon as the shuttle passed by, I looked up and I was about 60 degrees nose high, about 40 knots, which is about 40 miles an hour under my stall speed, and it was just hanging there, and it started to fall. And I said to myself, don't do anything. Whatever you do, it can't be right. And so I just let the airplane, slice through the horizon, fall, gather speed, lost about 4,000 feet. And the airplane regained speed. Had I done anything, I probably would have been at the bottom of the ocean with the camera.
One of Walby's proudest moments came in the early days of the Afghanistan War. As commander of the 99th Reconnaissance Squadron, its Global Hawk program, the U-2's drone counterpart, proved to be invaluable.
The Marines were trying to come up that valley, and the bad guys had lined the ridge and they were going to ambush our guys. We saw them through our infrared that these guys were there. We warned the Marines and they were able to get away, as well as we called in a gunship and we kind of, what's called, waxed them.
It was during the Battle of Tora Bora that for the first time the Global Hawk proved its mettle in a real-life combat scenario. Walby believes both the versatile U-2 and the unmanned Global Hawk have a role in helping the U.S. stay a step ahead in intelligence gathering. While the U-2 can put eyes in the sky pretty much anywhere, anytime, the Global Hawk can fly almost forever.
The unique part about Global Hawk, though, is it's computer controlled. You're not flying it with a joystick, you're just telling it where to go. And the computer takes off, flies, and you just give it direction. Or you can pre-program it to take any course you want. You can actually launch the airplane and walk away and it'll come back the next day.
In addition to his piloting skills, Walby is quite an artist.
It's just a hobby. I do paintings too.
His signed sketches of the famous spy plane are a hot item on eBay. And he loves to work on model airplanes. He made this model of the U-2 himself. As we wrapped up our discussion, I thanked Ed for his service, and he invited us back to reminisce another day. As he told me in a recent email, old pilots love to talk about themselves. We're thankful he chose to share his story with us. In Billings, I'm Jay Cohn reporting for MTN News.
All right, and we'll wrap things up here on the news at 6 when we come back.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the news at 6. If you thought it was just Wednesday, you are wrong. It's because it is also National Bacon Day, and bacon is so versatile. It can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, even dessert. Now, also simply known as Bacon Day, the celebration was created in 1997 by Meth, Human Cannonball Leonard, and Dana D. Goodman. They recommend eating bacon while viewing movies featuring actor Kevin Bacon or films that have the word bacon in the title. You can post all your bacon-related content to social media or send it to Andy Curtis at andycurtis@ktvh.com.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it, send it our way. But while I'm looking at that, I'm also looking at the weather because that's my job. And let's look at the weather right now. 7-day forecast for the Helena area, 37 degrees for the expected high on New Year's Eve. New Year's Day, not looking too shabby either, 38 degrees, good amount of sunshine both days. And then we get into the weekend, wind still sticking around Helena on Saturday, but not too bad, 39 and 41 with a good amount of sunshine.
All right, and that does it for the news at 6. We'll be back here tonight at 10 with your latest local headlines and, of course, another look at that weather. Enjoy the rest of your National Bacon Day.